Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Big box retailers, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a bill in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. Senate Bill 1838 would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, visit handsoffmyrewards.com and tell them to oppose credit card routing legislation paid for by the Electronic Payments Coalition.
Bummer, the holidays are over. No more presents. But yay, you have your freedom again. The new year is full of ups and downs, but however you're feeling, you can always be happy with Prime Video. Catch the new season of Reacher. Rent or buy new releases like Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour Extended version. You can add on hundreds of streamers. One app, one password. Prime Video. Find your happy place. Restrictions apply. Prime membership not required to rent or buy. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion for the first of our Festive 5 podcasts, with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. Opening the batting, as he used to do for Western Australia, is Ryan Campbell, now the head coach of Durham County Cricket Club, who last season won Division 2 of the County Championship by a mammoth 66 points. Ryan reflects on Durham's outstanding season and looks ahead with confidence to the return to the top division in 2024. The former Dutch coach gives his forthright thoughts on the English cricketing calendar, the 100, the Ashes and the recent Men's World Cup. If you love your cricket, enjoy 45 minutes with Ryan. Welcome back to the Paddock and the Pavilion, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Well, to start with, congratulations on your first season with Durham, winning Division 2 and securing promotion to Division 1 of the County Championship.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's, I guess looking back now on a pretty successful season, the excitement, I reckon, that was generated up here in the Northeast with the way we went about the game. And, a lot of guys had outstanding seasons, which was fantastic. And, to win, not just to win, but to win in the fashion we did was, filled the guys, with lots of confidence. And, now we look forward to take on the big challenge of going into Division 1 and, taking on the big boys, so to speak.
Yeah, 7 years since relegation. You were 6 in 2022, not you personally, but Durham. A campaign where you only lost one match, and that was the very first game against Sussex.
Well, and, the funny thing is, after playing that game, I kind of walked away and thought to myself, you know what, we actually almost played the perfect game of cricket to start. We had a 30-minute period in the second innings where the blokes actually went into their shells a little bit and we lost wickets. And instead of being that brave, take the game on, way we wanted to bat, and it was a great learning curve. And at the end of the game, I just spoke about that 30 minutes and how that was a great opportunity for us to actually put the foot on the accelerator, absorb the pressure, and then give it back. And I think the players understood where we were coming from then. And we came back here and played Worcester the next game. And I reckon it was the morning of the fourth day, and it wasn't me who pushed it, although I was about to, but it was the players that said, okay, we're going to declare now and we're going to put the game on the line and we're going to win. We're going to win this game of cricket. And, to me, I think we set 320 or something off 70 overs, which is not at all, it's not from what the norm had been. But the positivity and the faith that our players had with our bowling staff and the fact that they wanted to put the game on the line and a chance to lose, but more importantly, a great chance to win, I knew I had them. And I knew that my message had got across, and I knew right then that we were going to win the league. And that, I know that's sounding a bit like I'm thinking I'm a prophet or something, but just the twinkle in their eye, and then they went out and the way they played and, knocked Worcester over and got the win. it was just that, I just knew we had ticked that box, and the belief would have been swelling. And, I know that sounds silly. We'd only won one game, but I knew right then we were going to win the league.
Well, the first game you only lost narrowly against Sussex by 2 wickets. And your second game, when you're talking about Worcestershire, they were the team that came second in the table.
Yep. Yeah, like I say, it was a great test early on in the year for us to embed how I wanted to go about the way we wanted to play. And, all credit, I can come here and say, oh, look, I wanted to do it my way. But, mate, the facts are the credit goes to the players. They believed in it. They trusted it. And then they just took it between the teeth and went for it. And the way they played, the fearless brand that they showed. I think everyone talks about our scoring rates higher than any other team in either of the competitions. That was one element of it. But the fact that then we had the bowling staff to go about and take 20 wickets on more occasions than we didn't, that won us games. And like I say, I think this group of players have a really strong belief now that they can win games of cricket from any situation.
Talking about the scoring rate, I read in the Cricketer that the first innings, the run rate was over 4 in 11 of the first innings of the 14 matches, and you scored more than 458 times, which really underlines what you've just said, really.
Yeah, and I think, my batting coach who came with me from the Netherlands, James Hilditch, who did a fantastic job, points out to me quite often that we had more batting points than in the history of all of Durham ever has got, even though they had changed the point system and stuff like that. So, mate, it just said about the way that we wanted to go. And I've said this all along to you. I hate draws. I hate games just meandering on. And, for us to set up games of cricket, we knew that we had to score at a rate that gave time in the match for us to take 20 wickets. And the players believed in that. And to be honest, it also, when you got guys like Ollie Robson and Graham Clark and Alex Lees, all these sort of guys, they want to be themselves and they want to play the way they want to play. And, hopefully we've created a nice environment for them to do that. And away they went.
Picking up on a couple of players you mentioned there, Alex Lees scored more runs than anyone else in first-class cricket last summer. How impressed were you by the England international, and could he get back in the England side?
Oh, mate, look, Alex, we all know, is probably one of the best, red ball batters in first-class cricket around the world, to be honest. His numbers stack up against anyone, and he obviously has a point to prove. He wants to play Test cricket, and my job here as the Durham head coach is to help players become England players. And we set about the way we wanted him to play. And to be honest, in the first half of the season, he was quite frustrating because his scoring rates had gone through the roof, and he was making 40 literally every time he went out to bat, and then would get out with, just a mental pause or maybe trying to go a bit hard, a bit too often. But we had a good conversation about that. And when you got someone like Alex, he understands the game so well. And, I put him up there, with a guy I played a lot with in Justin Langer, where their mental toughness can get them through any situation. And, we obviously pointed out what was happening when he got to in the 40s, and we didn't want to make it a big issue, but I wanted him to push on. The fact that he wanted to change the way he was perceived and score quicker to get picked for England, of course, that's the way England play now. So he was trying to do that. But, my point to him was that you still got to score an absolute mountain of runs that they can't ignore. And if you do that, then they're going to stop and say, oh, well, hang on a minute. And then also look at the way he's gone about it as well. So, all credit to Alex. He did that. There was a period there, I think he made 500 or 600s in a row, and it was just ridiculous. He was playing on a wicket, to be honest, the way he played. So I guess the test now is what happens next. Does he get picked for England? because let's be honest, Duckett and Crawley are an established pair now. So, where does he fit in? Could he bat at number 3 for England? No doubt. But how are they going to see him? That's going to be interesting. You always know that, I reckon, when they go to the subcontinent, for some reason, I've got nothing against Keating Jennings. I think he's a fine player, but he seems to be the guy they look to on the subcontinent, whereas Alex, I don't understand why they wouldn't look at Alex, because if you look at his scoring rates against spinners, he's actually just as good as anyone else. So, that Indian series will be an interesting point of who they play and who they tour, who's the extra batter that goes on tour with them. But fingers crossed for Alex, because, like I say, at the end of the day, he's too good a player not to be playing Test cricket. That's the ultimate truth. And, if he doesn't get back into that Test team at some point, it's probably going to be one of the most unlucky players to have gone around. And
Graham Clark, you mentioned him. I was reading that he'd played 7 first-class matches in 4 years, and this season he scored 818 runs at 58.
Mate, it's, as a coach, every now and again you get one right, because normally you get 1,000 wrong and you get pointed out for the ones that you get wrong. But look, at the end of the day, did I take a punt on Graham Clark? 100%. But for me, if I'm coming in saying we don't want draws, we want to change the culture, there's no safety net the way you play, I also needed an example to show that I was willing to back someone, and I was willing to put my chips on a guy that's, let's be honest here, bleeds Durham and is so part of the core group of this establishment, basically. And if I could get him to be a success story, I felt that the whole group would just be elated and just be, almost become bulletproof. And we stuck with him. At the start of the year, he showed glimpses that you thought, almost. And I'll be honest, there was a time, I think, 4th game, when he was probably averaging high 20s, early 30s. And I guess the selection panel got together and his name came up. And I kind of said, well, here's the defining moments for us as coaches and as selectors. Do we live by what we say and create that safe environment and stick with a player and give him another chance, or do we fold, basically, and move it on and change it, which we could have done? Liam Travascus was going really well with the bat, and I think he made 80 not out in the game down at Glamorgan, and we could have gone with him, but something just kept saying to me that we got to play Graham Clark again, and thankfully, he took off from there. And I think it was the backing that we gave him and the support that we showed for him. He grabbed the bit with both teeth, in his teeth, and just ran with it. And, when you look at, you guys wouldn't have seen it, but Alex Lees at our trophy presentation actually broke down in tears talking about Graham Clark and the season he had and how he probably should have been the Players' Player of the Year. That's what he means to us here at Durham. And that's a sign that this group is very close and they want players to do well.
And members would always love a Durham person, wouldn't they? In the side. Yeah.
100%. And, the facts are that up here in the Northeast, we're very parochial and we want our locals to do well. But my job is also to make this team better and to continue to build it into what I hope to be the best team in England. And that means you do have to keep bringing, occasionally guys in from the outside. And we're doing that this year. And, that's going to test everyone and the members, because I know no doubt that if a couple of the new guys don't go well early, they're not from Durham, that'll come up. And why do we sign outsiders? But, we have to grow the game here, and we have to grow our squad, our strength and our depth if we want to be competitive in this first division.
Bowling-wise, you had the 2 leading bowlers in Division 2 as well, with Ben Rain, 60 wickets, and Matt Potts with 54.
Yeah, look, again, outstanding. Like I say, a lot of credit goes to the batting staff, but, all the bowlers did such a wonderful job. At times we were down to the bare bones with injuries and England call-ups, but, that's the nature of the beast. But every time we were almost down, someone would stand up, and generally it was either Matthew or particularly Ben who leads our attack, and those two were outstanding, and it's wonderful to see both Potts and Cast being put up for England selection and going to the Caribbean, because those boys were outstanding, and that was our point of difference. Their pace and their constant attacking of the batters tested all comers, and if they're to keep pushing on in their careers, they want to play for England, and that hurts Durham people, and it hurts us as a squad. But like I say, we're one of the foundation stones of English cricket, and my job will always be to produce England players. I think, I hate to say it, but I think some counties forget that sometimes, that it is about producing players for England. If you want a great English cricket team in Test cricket or white ball, counties have to produce the players. It's not England that produce players, it's the counties. And, that's our job, and we'll continue to do so. So, I think Potts and Cast particularly will be fantastic. Ben Rain, obviously, is a guy that, we're going to have here at Durham and continue to push, and he'll be tested. Ben's never played in the first division before, so he's going to be tested for the first time in his career. So there's lots of wonderful questions that will be answered over this next year or so with Durham cricket.
Just moving to the white ball, 7th in the Blast and 5th in the Metro Bank group. How did you feel that those two campaigns went?
Oh, mate, we clearly underachieved. As I've said to the players afterwards, yes, in the history of Durham, we've always been probably more red ball orientated, and that's just the way cricket is up here. But, when you bring in myself as the head coach with a background of, coaching the Dutch and Hong Kong and those sort of one-day 50 over T20 sort of spheres, I want us to be a very good white ball team, and we should be a very good white ball team. But unfortunately, what I will say, and I hate using excuses, but in the T20 Blast particularly, our bowling stocks were decimated. Bryden Cass, Matthew Potts, Coghlan, I think between the three of them may have bowled 2 overs in the whole Blast campaign, which, we just couldn't cover it, to be honest. Parnell was brought in at the expense of David Beddington as our overseas player. Literally, I wouldn't say we panicked, but the facts were we were so low on bowlers that we had to change our whole philosophy of what we were going to do, because originally that wasn't the plan. David Beddingham would have played in the T20 Blast team, but we just literally had no bowlers left. And at the start of that tournament, we were more competitive. We scored more runs than we ever have done in the past. We went over 200 more times than we've ever done in the past. We were scoring at a rate that was faster than we've ever done in the past. So there was lots of good things, but we literally just couldn't contain sides, which has always been our strength up here. So, that was a great learning curve. And of course, when you talk about the 50 over cricket, we were very disappointing. But in saying that, we lost 7 or 8 players to the 100, and I know most counties do that, but we're not a massive county. And if you take 8 of our best players out, we got to find our stocks. And our stocks, although some of our youngsters had good tournaments, we showed flashes, but again, we weren't quite up to the mark. So, that gives us a real focus for this year, to turn around our white ball. Alex Lees is our white ball captain. Mate, he doesn't want to be an ordinary team. He's desperate for this white ball team to be successful. So, he'll drive that. And we're bringing in Ackerman and Parkinson, who are all-round good cricketers who are very, very good at white ball as well. That immediately will change our makeup of our team, which therefore, we've also brought in Boland, obviously, that, people are reading about, who hasn't played a lot of T20, but we know he's going to be very good at it. For instance, Parkinson and Boland will probably bowl 4 of the 6 overs in the power play. And the power play was our biggest issue because we didn't have anyone who bowl in the power play. So all of a sudden, we're addressing one issue there straight away, which should theoretically make us a better white ball cricket team and a better T20 team. So, yeah, the plans are in place, and, the changes afoot. For instance, our pre-season, our batting, I think 3 of the 4 weeks will be on white ball in a month, and 1 week will be on red ball. That's the change of focus we're trying to do here. So, hopefully we can be as competitive as possible next year.
Because the games in the white ball, they do come thick and fast, and if you've got injuries, then there's a lot of things to cover, isn't there?
Well, that's the thing. It's the schedules. Again, I'm not here to be political. It doesn't make it perfect for preparation. I know this year there's probably more double headers than we've ever had before, and history and the stats show that if you've got a double header, I think you lose 72% of the games. The second game, you lose 72% of the time, which is not a great stat that you want sitting over your head. So, we're going to have to find ways and theories around it. As we all know, again, we're not boo-hooing about where we are, but we do travel more than pretty much anyone in the competition. So I'm still, as an Aussie, still can't quite believe that Birmingham is north, and teams like that are in the north group. But apparently, if you're above London, you're north. So, it's a great eye-opener for me.
On the subject of the schedule, just a quick question. What do you think of the 100? You've mentioned the 100 does deprive Durham of quite a lot of players. Is it good for the county game?
Look, again, I say it's good because I think every county gets 1.3 million. So that's a pretty good reason. You can't, bite the hands that feed you, basically. And if that's the way English cricket needed to go to bankroll county cricket, then you know what? We all got to suck it up. Is it perfect? Could we maybe play 50 over cricket earlier in the season to try and, get through that competition? Because let's be honest here, England just had a horrible World Cup, and they've got 3 or 4 years now to rebuild and start afresh and get their 50 over cricket back on track. But how are you going to do that if no one plays 50 over cricket? All your best players aren't playing 50 over cricket. And it's easy to say, oh, yeah, but everyone plays T20, they'll just change the game. But I think what we saw in India, you actually can't. You actually need experience. It's almost back to the days where you need your test players who can also play 50 over cricket, and then with a bit of T20 thrown in at the end where, scoring rates can go through the roof. So I think it's an interesting one. I honestly haven't got the answer to it all. All I know is, as someone who coached internationally and preparing for T20 games, you need to prepare players, and you need to have them physically fresh, and you need to have them focused on your opposition, and how we work nowadays with analyst systems and all that. You want to plan accordingly, and the way it's all structured at the moment, it's very it's pretty much you rock up and keep your fingers crossed and hope that your players are ready to go. But you need a bigger squad. It's okay for, I reckon, the bigger squads where they have red ball bowlers and white ball bowlers, things like that. And again, the last thing I'm going to hear is to boo-hoo and, moan about poor us. We'll find a way. But I think if you're looking to play optimally, somehow we got to find a way to schedule it a little bit better.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Big box retailers, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a bill in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. Senate Bill 1838 would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, visit handsoffmyrewards.com and tell them to oppose credit card routing legislation paid for by the Electronic Payments Coalition.
Oh, bummer. The holidays are over. But yay, your weird relatives left. But no more presents. But yay, you have your freedom again. But there are no more desserts. But there's also no more holiday music, huh? The new year is full of ups and downs. But however you're feeling, you can always be happy with all the content on Prime Video. Catch the new season of Reacher, included with Prime.
Why'd you hit him so hard?
I don't hit soft.
Rent or buy new releases like The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. You can even add on hundreds of streamers, all in one app with one password. No bummers here, just lots of yay. Prime Video. Find your happy place. Restrictions apply. Prime membership not required to rent or buy. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
On the World Cup, as an Aussie, you must be on a high with Australia winning the World Cup and the Netherlands, winning 2 games against test-playing nations.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I got to check myself sometimes because obviously as the Aussie, I cop a bit of stick as I did throughout the whole Ashes journey and, from the players and stuff. And when the Aussies do well, I'm almost too quick to want to text and say, hey, cop that, you blokes. And I forget sometimes I've got the captain of England on that WhatsApp group as well as Mark Wood and these sort of guys. So I got to be a bit careful. But honestly, I think Australia played magnificent cricket in the final. I think we'll all agree that India were the best team in that tournament. But that's why, and as I tell my 8-year-old son all the time, it's why we have finals. It's why Australia always has finals in every competition you have. You don't just play a league and whoever finishes on top wins the league. You've got to go through the finals because you've got to perform on the big day and you've got to be able to absorb the pressure and give it back. And that's what Australia did. They did their research the way that they were brave enough to bowl first against India, who had continued to make runs, but their theory was sound with, the wickets and all that sort of stuff. So, look, I thought it was fantastic that Australia ended up winning. India, it felt like it was all pretty much made for India to win that World Cup because, the way it was all going, but these things happen. Of course, incredibly proud of the Dutch team. I think when I look at that squad, I think 14 of the 15 players, I looked after for 5 or 6 years of my life, nurturing them from, some of them 16, 17-year-olds to, an Ari and Dutt who we picked on a tour when people laughed at me, and Buster later, people kept questioning me why I kept picking him. But at the end of the day, and again, I was always about leaving the place in a better position than when I started. I think I left the keys to a pretty good car that the coaching staff there have done a fantastic job. There's a belief that the Super League did so much for the belief of that squad, playing against the best players in the world. And despite we didn't win, but we were getting into positions where we should have won games and we learnt a lot. And those players weren't overawed then when you're playing against the big teams. And you go to a World Cup, you don't want to just make up the numbers. And you had the feeling, when they beat Bangladesh, I just watched that game and I was lucky enough to be commentating for BBC. And I walked away from there going, that wasn't a surprise. It felt like when you watched that the Dutch were one of the top 10 teams and Bangladesh was an associate. It made them look so professional in the way they went about it. So, and of course, beating South Africa, with what South Africa were doing was a fantastic performance. So, we got pretty good memories of what we did to them in the T20 World Cup last year, and now we'll have pretty good memories of the World Cup. I still say we, which I've got to let that go. It's it's hard. My son and my daughter still watch Dutch TV every morning, so I'm surrounded by the Dutchies in my own house still. So, but yeah, good performance. But again, without being political, I will now say what comes next for the Dutch. They've done really well, but mate, there's every chance they won't play another ODI against the full member for the next 4 years. And they're saying that without the World Cricket, the Super League, it's all going to be on rankings. So very hard to get your rankings up if you're never playing any teams in the top 10. So, it'll probably go back to those same old 10 teams that you get and maybe a qualifier somewhere around the track. And that's a shame. in my book. I could be very political there, but I'm not going to get into it. We've only got 15 minutes, haven't we?
I've got as long as you like, really, but I've got my notes here. It says just hope they can continue to progress, but ODI matches versus best sides for their development. But will that happen? And is there the will from the other teams to play them as well?
Well, mate, again, people talk a good game, but then you get, unfortunately, administrators who you just have to look at that India versus Australia T20 series going on at the moment. Like any normal cricket-minded person would never have scheduled that, but administrators needing to cash in, they put that. So are they going to actually think, oh, yeah, let's go help the Dutch out, or should we help Scotland out, or should we help even teams like Ireland out? I don't think that's ever going to happen. That, the World Cricket League will start again. The Dutch will go back into that. They'll play teams like Nepal and Oman and Scotland, and no disrespect, Namibia, no disrespect to them, because they're all really good, growing teams, but they're going to be the same. They want to play against the big boys too, because they need to get better. But if it never happens, then yeah, it is a bit of a shame, because I felt, speaking to people around, that most people would turn the TV on and watch the Dutch play because they wanted the underdog to do well. And, they gave them an interest at the World Cup, which is, like I say, you would hope that something good of it. Of course, it now goes to the Dutch administrators to see what they can produce. I hope that while they're at the World Cup, they were sitting in boxes with opposition teams trying to find ways to play. I don't know if that happened. You just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So, look, they've got a T20 World Cup to go to next year. I've no doubt that they'll be aiming pretty much everything towards that. So, yeah, I just keep my fingers crossed, that's all.
Well, they were thrilling to watch. I mean, in the field, the commitment, the enthusiasm, and as I recently spoke to one of your players, Paul Van Maker, and the ability in the field, you were willing on the Netherlands when you were watching them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the one thing that, as a cricket coach, you always say to your players, it's all about commitment and what's going through your mind of if you're going to be a good fielder or not. Because if you have that desire, it's the one thing that we can control. As a batter, you might get knocked over first ball. As a bowler, you might bowl crap. But, there's the one given in cricket is that you have to field the whole time. And how can you make an impact on a game of cricket is by being the gun fielding side, and that's what they did. I reckon, everything I've said and how proud I was and how well they played, I will say they still didn't play very well. And I know that sounds weird, but, they won 2 games. They were competitive. But if you look at it, if you delve into it, they really didn't play as well as what they should have. The opening pair in No Doubt and Vikram Singh were disappointing. No batter really was a standout, which, again, was a bit of a shame because they were always batting, I reckon, under pressure after losing early wickets. And the bowlers, some were okay. I think Aryan Dutt was fantastic, but, the medium paces were okay without going great. So that's the thing for me. It's always like you walk away frustrated. And I spoke to their coach the other day. It's like I felt I was frustrated because you didn't play at an optimum level. But like you said, you just couldn't maintain it for long enough. And that's the difference between good and bad teams. They played maybe 60 or 70 overs of good cricket, but not 100 all the time. And like I say, that's just the difference in international players, the depth of talent, all that sort of stuff. So, there was some good and there's some not so good stuff as well.
Just a short mention on the Ashes. Fair result to all?
Mate, to be honest, I've heard that much rubbish about the Ashes this year. I actually thought some parts of it was boring as hell. The way that, some of the fields and the bounces and all that sort of stuff, that wasn't as exciting as everyone spoke about. I thought the batting was okay. England made some stupid mistakes at stupid times. And again, you can say Bazball is what it is and goes for it. And I love it. I love the aggression. but they didn't play very well. And I think Australia actually played okay without being exceptional as well. So in the end of the day, it goes away 2-2. Is what were they calling it? A moral victory to England or something? I don't get what that means. The facts are they didn't retain the Ashes. Then I hear stories that it was the greatest test team ever assembled from England's point of view, which, mate, give me a spell. What are you on about? You can't even win a series if you're the greatest ever team in the history of Test cricket. Come on. Australia in the late 90s when they won 16 matches in a row, probably the greatest team, or the West Indies of that unbelievable 80s and 90s era. But I think it was almost like people use Bazball as I don't know, it's almost like a cult. You have to talk about it wonderfully and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you got to win games of cricket. And generally they will. Don't get me wrong. I'm a massive fan of the way they're going about their batting. But if you don't produce wins, people are going to start picking it apart. And, I know Nathan Lyon's copying a bit of crap for what he said afterwards, but I'm not surprised that the Aussies pick it apart and say, well, hang on a minute. It's a phase. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, it's just a phase. It's just their style. It's not the style everyone wants to play. It's not the style that everyone should play, but it's a style. And there's some great players in that team that do a really good job because that's their brand of cricket. So, yeah, let them go for it. But is it the best team? I'm not sure. No disrespect, but, Johnny Bairstow's wicket-keeping was poor in that, in the 5 tests, which cost them. Should he be the wicket-keeper? Probably not. But they're trying to fit him in somehow because his batting is so good, which I get, I understand. But you still got to get your best cricket team on the park. Ben Foakes is an amazing wicketkeeper. Somehow they got to find a spot for him. England cricket need to find a bowling staff. Because let's be honest, it was the oldest bowling squad they've ever put on the park. And that's for me, as the Durham coach, when I look around in Division 2, some of the bowlers are exceptionally talented, but they're not Test cricketers. And then so this year when I watch it First Division, I'm going to watch and I might change my opinion. But that English-style bowler that bowls 100, I'm sorry, I'm still talking in kilometres, but bowls 125 kilometres an hour, who nips it around, it might be great in county cricket. Test cricket doesn't work because the wickets are flatter, the batters are better, and you got to find it. And hence why there's been a real push for pace. And I get it. I 100% agree with it. You've got to have ball speed. And, it's probably why we're talking about using Kookaburra balls and things like that here in England to try and make youngsters want to bowl faster. It's why Carson Potts are being spoken about. It's why Josh Tongue came about. It's why we love Mark Wood. That's what England need to do. That's why Jofra Archer is such a big loss, because they're natural ball speed players. And, it's going to be interesting to see what comes, because in all honesty, the 50-over game, when you look at the World Cup, England have been an outstanding white ball team for 4 or 5 years. They deserve all the plaudits. But what it did do was cover the fact their bowling wasn't very good. Their batting, if you look at the history of English cricket, all the Morgan era was unbelievable how they went about the game. But they generally got hit for a lot as well. And I reckon that kind of got covered over a little bit. Guy like a Plunkett did a really good job for them. But once you took Archer out, then you had players. And like I said, I looked at their bowlers and you thought, okay, really good bowlers, but is that the best bowling attack that you can have in a World Cup? And probably the answer was no. And that's where now the refurb, I guess the start again that Matthew Mott has to do, and a little bit McCullum will have to do with, Broad, and maybe Anderson has got a little bit of time left. You've got to find bowlers, and you've got to find a bowling staff. And that's That, I think, is the number one priority for English cricket, because the batting, mate, there's so many great batters out there, youngsters coming through who can whack the ball in all sorts of areas. But you need bowlers. You need to take 20 wickets to win a test match. And generally, you need to take 10 wickets in an ODI if you want to be, in a dominant position to win that game.
Well, thank you very much. It's always enjoyable to hear your thoughts on international cricket, Ryan. Coming up tomorrow in our next Festive 5 podcast, you will be hearing from former national hunt jockey Jacob Pritchard Webb, who, after his life-changing fall in June 2020, is now pursuing a successful career on Sky Sports racing and in the bloodstock world. Take a listen to Jacob in episode 78, The Fall and Racing Career, UK and France, and episode 79, Pushing Through the Barriers. Moving forward to 2024, we mentioned off air that the players are already back, and your first game, looking on your website, there's a game in March. Yeah,
it comes thick and fast. We'll play the University. I think we'll also play maybe Yorkshire or someone like that, in a practice friendly at the end of March. We plan to go to Zimbabwe again for a pre-season tour, which will incorporate us playing in the T20 competition in Zimbabwe. Again, trying to address our white ball failures, so to speak, and trying to really promote the youngsters and get to know the way we want to play our T20 cricket. So that should get us into fine fettle to get going. Mate, the one interesting thing for Durham this year is that we've got so many people away in Lions tours, maybe possible test tours, the Caribbean tour. We've got 3 or 4 in the under-19s, England World Cup squad who will go away as well. So, training here is quite weird with such a small squad and players playing more cricket than they've ever done before, which is really good for them. But I look forward to getting everyone back for a couple of weeks before Zimbabwe, just to get in sync again and spell out what we want to do this year. And I think it's a really exciting time for Durham. Going back into the first division, we don't want to just make up the numbers. We're going to try and win the whole thing. And if we do that and we fall a little bit short, then you know what, we probably had a pretty good year. But if we get it right, who knows what could happen.
You've mentioned the signings already. They were needed to bolster the strength of the side?
Look, the facts are, last year everyone talks about our batting, and we pretty much played the same 6 batters the whole time, and they all had really, really good years. But I guess the whole thing was, we probably needed at least one more, with the development of Ben McKinney still ongoing. And, as the under-19s captain, we have, high hopes for Ben in the longer form and the white ball game. So we felt that a go-to middle order player, but who could also bowl as well in all formats, because our top order, except for Scotty Borthwick, probably none of them bowled, which also put a bit of pressure on our bowling stock. So, the fact that we brought in Colin Ackerman, who I think he's made over 10,000 first-class runs. Obviously, I know him very well from his Dutch playing days as well. I think it adds that extra bit of class to our batting makeup, which, again, is another layer. And, look, the facts are that when it comes to spin, I think we changed our whole philosophy last year when I, went to Marcus and said that I wanted a overseas spinner, which everyone thought couldn't work. But, that overseas spinner in Kuhneman and then Patel and then, Parkinson, when he came on loan, actually was our 3rd highest wicket taker. And it was so important to us. So, a quality English spinner was one of the necessities I felt that. And, Marcus, who does a brilliant job up here, was very quick. He wanted Callum Parkinson. He felt his upside is still a long way away. In fact, my biggest fear is he's going to end up playing for England very quickly. which could put a spanner in the works. But if that happens, it happens. But by adding those two guys, I think it gives us extra batting, extra options in what we can do. And they're also really, really good white ball players, which I'd spoken about, which we're trying to address as well. So I think that adds another layer to our cricket. Honestly don't know what our batting lineup's going to be in the first game of the year, which is pressure is on for spots in the team, which could be interesting to watch. But like I say, I think what it's going to do is give Durham a very, very impressive cricket team.
Well, Durham, last winners of the county championship in 2013. You're going to play some tough sides in Division 1.
100%. They're great teams in there, and our goal will be to beat Surrey. I know that Stewie pretends that everyone is jealous of them and all this sort of stuff, but it's not jealousy. It's the fact that they've set the benchmark of what a first-class team has to be in England. And, we're gunning to come and get them. That's the facts. We don't play them until September, but until then, we'll be trying to put as much pressure on them by beating everyone else and playing really good cricket against everyone else. And, like I say, if we can get our brand across and play it the way we want to play it, I think we can be competitive against anyone. I think the signing of Scott Boland pretty much straight away showed to everyone that, they are serious. They've brought in another fast bowler who, along with Carson Potts, is pretty impressive makeup of a team. Throw into the facts that a bloke who bats left hand and maybe a captain of England suddenly has pulled out of the IPL, gives him a few weeks off in April, May before that first test match. And he might need to play a few games of cricket, which could be handy. You've got the formula and the basis of a very, very good cricket team. Again, we're going to, like most, keep our fingers crossed for, keeping our bowling staff injury-free and, Carson Potts, who knows what's going to happen with them. But, if we can get them on the park, suddenly if you've got Rain, Cars, Potts, Boland, it's pretty good 4 fast bowlers to start your season.
Sounds like it. Finally, what's it been like living as an Aussie in the UK?
It snowed this morning for the first time this winter, and it just reminded me of how cold it does get up here. But, I'm a Perth boy. I went home for a couple of weeks, and, my mum and dad, I love them to bits, obviously, and, they're, 80-odd and 90-odd, moaning that it was only 33 degrees. Well, my son was feeling like it was melting, was quite humorous. But I'll be honest, I don't think I'll ever quite get used to the cold. Even I've spent, 5 or 6 years in the Netherlands, and this is my first year in England full time. It's still cold to the bones. But what I will say, the Northeast is a wonderful place to live. It's so hospitable. The people are so friendly and nice. My kids walk down with me to Durham. They look at the cathedral. They know that Harry Potter was filmed there. They think they're living in a wonderland. So, it's been fantastic. Even, this year in summer, I had a couple of days off. We did the old hire an RV and drove up the northeast coast, and some of the places up there, Bammenberg and these sort of places, are unbelievably beautiful. So, we're very lucky. And like I say, never thought I'd say this, but I think I'm going to end up living in England for quite some time. Of course, unless I get sacked after this year or something. But generally, I think I'll be in England for a while.
Well, hopefully not. That's not the case. You're not going to get sacked, and Durham are going to have a very successful 2024 season. I've not seen a game at Durham, so I've never been up to Durham to watch cricket, so I must make a journey up there.
I'll hold you to that, mate. I look forward to seeing you up here.
Are you all okay health-wise?
100%, yeah. So I've, obviously we keep a close eye on what's going on, and, the docs are always in check, and I have my regular checkups and stuff, and they're very happy with the way I am. And obviously, there'll always be something in the back of my mind, worried. But at the end of the day, they've done the research, they've looked into it, they feel that I'm in perfect shape, and my heart's going well. So yeah, I'm going to take their advice as gospel and push on and keep enjoying my life. I've even started back in the gym, which I haven't done since the time, April 2022 when my cardiac arrest happened. So I'm actually trying to get a bit fitter and healthier at the moment, which is quite painful, to be honest.
Oh, that sounds good for a cricket coach. Thank you very much, Ryan, for coming back on the Paddock and the Pavilion. I'm going to put this show out over the Christmas period. A happy Christmas to you and best wishes to you and your family and to Durham County Cricket Club for 2024.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me, and obviously have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Sports Social Podcast Network. Denise has been playing jazz for 40 years. Last concert, one of the musicians fell sick with RSV. Respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, is a highly contagious virus that can lead to breathing problems. This time, she's choosing to help protect herself with Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo. Abrysvo is a vaccine for the prevention of lower respiratory tract disease caused by respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, in adults 60 years of age and older. Abrysvo is not for everyone and may not protect all who receive the vaccine. Don't get Abrysvo if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its ingredients. People with a weakened immune system may have a decreased response to Abrysvo. The most common side effects are tiredness, headache, pain at the injection site, and muscle pain. Ask your pharmacist or doctor about Pfizer's RSV vaccine, Abrysvo, respiratory syncytial virus vaccine. For full prescribing information, please call 1-844-989-7284 or visit abrysvo.com. Brought to you by Pfizer.